This is my second video on how Tor users got caught, following the success of my first video, which was a DEF CON talk enabled how Tor users got caught. In this video, I'll go over some more cases of how users got arrested. The majority of these cases, I have several hundred of them compiled, but the majority are human error. There are some where they were actually de-anonymized by either, malicious bugs or hacks or some types of attacks. So I'm going to go over these and I'll point out what they did wrong. Our first case is a 14-year-old who hired someone on one of the Onion sites in the Tor network to call in bomb threats to his school.
We have a third bomb threat, ladies and gentlemen.
There's been an arrest in the case of a bomb threats made to Buchholz High School. There were 3 threats over the last 3 weeks. A 14-year-old freshman now faces felony charges. ASO says the student could be facing up to 15 years in prison.
The 14-year-old, his name isn't released as far as I have found, but he was caught by investigators talking to other students and teachers, so apparently he had bragged about it and was busted that way. This is a quote from what the investigators said. "This student was so sophisticated with his knowledge that the phone he was using is what we call jailbroken, which means it may look like a normal phone, but if you put in a certain password, there is a completely different operating system. That is where he was able to secure services from the dark web." They go on to say you can buy anything from bazookas to bomb threats. So this case was obviously human error, and he did get caught. I believe he didn't really get in any major trouble. As part of his sentence, he had to write a letter of apology to the community and perform several hours of community service. A quote from him was, "My intent was never to cause chaos or to scare people. I arranged the threats initially just to see if it would actually happen, and we'd get out of school. By the time I caused the 3rd threat, I had told a few friends, and they were encouraging me to do it again." So, obviously human error. Our second case is Jacob Theodore George IV. He was a major heroin vendor known as Digital Link on Silk Road. He was arrested in January 2012 after his packages had been repeatedly intercepted for at least the previous 6 months. George knew about the interceptions, but he bragged online about how he had sweet-talked his way out of any problems. Some buyers were unconvinced. More than one had called him an idiot and predicted that he would be arrested soon. But Digital Link kept shipping heroin and a handful of other drugs out to customers until the cops knocked down his door. It's not clear from his plea agreement how or exactly when authorities located him, but he granted investigators access to his emails, shipping records, and financial statements related to his business, according to the document. So this, once again, was human error. It was the postal service which pretty much brought him to the attention of everyone, and through investigation and watching him, they intercepted more packages and finally had enough information to get down a warrant. The fact that he turned over his information, his emails and stuff, allowed them to make many more arrests. Now our next case is Brian Richard Farrell. He was 27 and went under the moniker Dr. Clue. Farrell was one of the small staff of online administrators and forum moderators who assisted Blake Benthal with the day-to-day operations of Silk Road 2.0. Dr. Clue was involved in activities such as approving new staff and vendors for the website and organizing a denial service attack on a competitor. When the search warrant was served at Farrell's Bellevue home, agents seized $35,000 in cash as well as silver bullion and various types of drug paraphernalia. As one of the key masterminds and coordinators of the Silk Road criminal marketplace, Farrell profited from the destruction of untold lives, said Brad Bench, special agent in charge of HSI Seattle. So, according to the complaint, federal agents asked Farrell if he could help them identify other top people who were involved with Silk Road 2.0. And Farrell told them, "You're not going to get much bigger fish than me." He was charged with 1 count of conspiracy to distribute cocaine, heroin, and methamphetamine. So how he was found was between January 2014 and July 2014. A source of information provided law enforcement with particular IP addresses that had accessed the vendor portion of Silk Road 2.0. This was basically a separate Onion site just for the vendors and administrators. A user could not accidentally end up on the vendor portion. Only administrators, moderators, and vendors who had conducted a certain amount of transactions. At the end of July, Homeland Security investigations in Seattle received a lead on one of the IP addresses and pulled Comcast records to find the IP address matched the address of one of the investigators' cooperating witnesses. The cooperating witness was roommates with Farrell and said that he had learned about Silk Road and the darknet from Farrell, adding that he was a computer wizard and maintained a server in the garage. Farrell also obviously tracked his packages online and babysat the mailbox, according to the informant. The roommate also provided the feds with a box of Xanax pills that had been addressed to Farrell. On January 2nd, 2015, agents served a search warrant on Farrell's residence and confiscated various computer media, various prescription medications, drug paraphernalia, silver bullion bars valued at $3,900, and approximately $35,000 in cash. So, he was de-anonymized through a research project done by Carnegie Mellon University. The FBI subpoenaed Carnegie Mellon University for the records that they obtained doing their research project, which led to the de-anonymization of several hundred IP addresses that used different sites. This led to many different arrests, from child pornography to drug charges and people on sites such as Silk Road. I'm going to go into some further of these, but first let me go a little bit further. Basically, Carnegie Mellon University operated some relays and used a flaw in the Tor network, which has been repaired now, which allowed them to track users and de-anonymize some IP addresses. It's now abundantly clear that CMU used a vulnerability in the Tor software to find some users' true IP addresses. Information was collected during a months-long attack in 2014 carried out as research for a Department of Defense-funded project. The FBI later discovered that CMU had carried out an attack and served the research with a subpoena to hand over any information pertinent to a criminal case, which it did. An earlier allegation from the Tor project claimed that CMU was paid $1 million by the FBI to conduct the study. CMU strongly denied any money specifically changing hands, and put out a press release that hinted at a subpoena. According to court filings in the case of Brian Farrell, a staff member of the marketplace Silk Road 2.0, CMU's side of the story is technically right. The university was hired by the DoD to conduct research, which was later subpoenaed by the FBI. It's a convenient arrangement for sure, but one that does technically stay within ethical and legal bounds. This is suspected to be the source of information, which is hinted at in other court documents, saying that an FBI source of information provided a reliable IP addresses for Tor and hidden services such as Silk Road 2.0, the main marketplace, the vendor section, and the Silk Road 2.0 forum and support interface. The information that has been provided to the feds led to the location of the Silk Road 2 servers, which helped in the identification of at least another 17 black markets on Tor, which refers to Operation Onymous, where law enforcement authorities in several different countries took down dark net marketplaces and scam sites on the dark web in a synchronized operation. However, that's not all of the info. The warrant goes on like this. The source of information also identified approximately 78 IP addresses that accessed a vendor onion address. It says, referring to the users of Silk Road 2.0, when Farrell's case was held in court, the defense made this statement. On October 2, 2015, the government provided defense counselors a letter indicating that Mr. Farrell's involvement with the Silk Road 2.0 was identified based on information obtained by a university-based research institute that operated its own computers on the anonymous network used by Silk Road 2.0. The defense also asked for more evidence on the academic infrastructure that anonymously provided information to the FBI. After that, the defense made this statement. To date, the government has declined to produce any additional discovery. There is no proof in the case, rather just speculation. However, there might be a chance that the group of relays that were trying to de-anonymize Tor users were the same set up by Carnegie Mellon University. This is the same interval when the unnamed source of information provided info to the Bureau. Farrell wasn't the only one who had to appear before the court for different charges that came from the mysterious source of information. Gabriel Peterson Silver, whose hearing was held November 1st, was charged with the possession of child pornography in June 2014. The same time interval Farrell's IP address was provided to the FBI. An investigation into Peterson Silver showed an IP address that belonged to the man. After his house was searched in September 2014, he was charged with possession of child pornography in April of this year and pled not guilty to all charges. Peterson Silver's defense re-questioned the same information and evidence on the source that provided the IP address that led to the man's bust. Our next case is Blake Benthall. He was also detected by Operation Onymous. On the 5th of November 2014, as a final piece of Operation Onymous, this operator of Silk Road 2.0, Blake Benthall, aka DEFCON, was arrested in San Francisco. It is highly likely that the undercover agent Cirrus had enabled the locating of this Silk Road 2.0 server, which Benthall apparently had rented under his own name, possibly at his employer Close's hosting. After which his Bitcoin spending on a Tesla was noted and surveillance correlated DEFCON's activities with Benthall's. After being arrested, he did not admit to everything. On the 6th of November 2014, David and Terry Sherrill were arrested in California for selling marijuana and marijuana max. Additional coverage indicates that they were investigated after discovering an IP address that was associated with the Silk Road 2.0 site. And then P.O. Box surveillance nailed them. The Dr. Clue case reveals that the seller portal for the SR2 had been used to de-anonymize a few IP addresses, but not many, implying that an undercover agent, presumably Cyrus, had inserted a de-anonymization exploit similar to the freedom hosting exploit that was talked about in my previous video. David and Terry Shell were probably the Silk Road and Silk Road 2 sellers under the name California Cannabis. Our next case, Richard Armendariz, worked as a U.S. Customs and Border Protection analyst for 42 years. Armendariz, 69 years old, was arrested as part of a massive investigation into child pornography on the darknet. When Richard retired 5 years ago, he moved back to San Antonio, Texas, where his two sons lived. He was one of 215,000 people that the FBI had connected to a website it seized that made child porn available on the darknet. It is just one of the many arrests going to be made in this FBI takeover of Playpen. Assistant Attorney Tracy Thompson told the U.S. magistrate judge, quote, "There is part of him that is completely unknown to his family. This man has a demonstrated sexual interest in prepubescent children for 36 years. At the hearing, there was also a woman who alleged Armendariz molested her in El Paso. The woman said the molestations happened from the time she was 11 years old until she was in high school. She stated that she was 20 when she finally told her parents that what Armendariz was doing to her. Jeff Baker, an FBI special agent, told the court that their Playpen investigation targeted Armendariz specifically in the beginning of May 15, 2015. It wasn't until September that the FBI agents raided his home and confiscated his laptop and computer equipment. Baker also testified that Playpen was the largest child porn ring in existence on the Tor network. Armendariz testified that he had been searching and viewing child pornography via the encrypted Tor network for 3 years. Armendariz's attorney also told the magistrate Armendariz's favorite section was toddlers. Some of it involved horrible sexual abuse, some of it is described as mutilation. With more than 117,000 posts and an average of 11,000 unique visitors a week, Playpen has proven to be one of the biggest on Tor. The investigation was kept secret until November by news reports in the San Antonio newspaper about 3 local men being charged in connection with the investigation. It is still clear how many of the 1,300 people identified by their IP addresses have been arrested. Armendariz's defense attorney argued that he was forthcoming with the FBI during the September raid on his home and admitted to being in possession of child pornography. Defense attorney Davis also argued that her client is not in danger to the community because there is no evidence that Armendariz had any kind of sexual interaction with children other than 30-year-old acquaintances. The FBI's investigation consisted of them infecting the site with malware, gaining control of Playpen, running it from their servers for 2 weeks in order to trace the website users. The malware was able to de-anonymize users due to a flaw in the Firefox browser. The FBI has been very active in developing or paying others to develop exploits to use against Tor users in order to unmask their real identities. While they haven't been able to de-anonymize a specific user, they have used techniques that allowed them to de-anonymize users and then locate them if they were within their jurisdiction. And also, this doesn't just happen in America, this is worldwide. There's hundreds of arrests every year throughout the world. The vast majority of arrests are due to human error, using P.O. boxes, telling people, having things in your name, or using usernames. There's been arrests where people use the same username on eBay that they used on Silk Road and stuff. Basically, you have to really pay attention to what you're doing, and you'll be relatively safe. Keeping your software up to date definitely helps, as these attacks, the majority of which, not all, but the majority of which had been fixed in the newest versions of Tor. There's always correlation attacks and other attacks as that had been gone over in my previous video. Just keeping your stuff up to date will definitely help out a lot. Our final case is entitled OPSEC Fail. Ex-judge arrested in online impersonation case. Online impersonation is a crime in Texas, which is what former Judge Christopher Dupuy is being charged 2 counts of. In a case similar to that of Preston Alexander McWaters, the 43-year-old also has problems with handling rejection from women. Dupuy has known a woman, let's call her Jane, for 20 years and has dated her for 6 years until she ended the relationship in August 2014 and decided to marry someone else. The marriage didn't work out and Jane got a divorce. She had Deputy Dupuy represent her in her divorce proceedings, in which she at one point asked if they could be in a relationship together again. Jane declined and he was angered by this. Dupuy began aggressively stalking her on Facebook and making comments about other men she interacted with. He also saved pictures and sent them to her with derogatory remarks. Jane put up with this until her divorce was finalized in November 2014 and cut off all contact and ignored him. She told the investigating officer, Scott Hardcastle, that Dupuy had been harassing her ever since they broke up in August 2014. On December 2014, he graduated from Facebook harassment to something more sinister. Jane began receiving several phone calls and text messages. Finally answering one of the calls, she found out that she was on Backpage.com, purporting to be a prostitute. The advert stated that she charged $70 an hour. Jane told the deputy she had contacted that she isn't a prostitute, didn't post the advert, and didn't give anyone permission to post the advert. She told the deputy that she suspects that Dupuy was behind this. Hardcastle interviewed Jane in January 2015, where she told him what she told the deputy. He then researched into Dupuy's life and found out that he was a judge. 6 days later, he sent a subpoena to Backpage.com and learned the username, email address, home address, IP address, and credit card number of the account that posted the advert. The home address was Jane's, and the account was associated with numerous IP addresses. Apparently, the account made 2 adverts for the same person, Jane. One advert used a picture that Jane took while she was dating Dupuy and only sent to one person, Dupuy. Hardcastle looked into the credit card number and using a bin checker, he found that it was a Visa credit card. After contacting Visa, he was redirected to Green Dot, who told them it was a gift card and wasn't registered to anyone, so they were no help. After that dead end, Hardcastle turned his attention toward the IP addresses. The first one is an IP address in Germany connected to the provider 23 Media, and the second one was an IP address in Venezuela connected to the provider Roya Hosting. He quickly determined that these IP addresses were VPNs. When the Venezuelan National Police Cybercrimes Unit was contacted, they told Hardcastle that the IP address resolves to the state-owned telephone and internet company CIAMV, and that this hosting service is designed to conceal the true location of the user, and that there would be no further way to discover the identity of the user. Germany was of no help either, because when Hardcastle reached out to Homeland Security to assist him, they told him they weren't able to trace the identity due to the fact that Germany only retains IP address logs for 7 days. Hardcastle never determined which VPN service the IP belonged to, but the hosting providers have been associated with a few, including Hide My Ass. The Houston Press reports that Dupuy used Hide My Ass, but Hardcastle's affidavit never states this. And so Hardcastle looked into the username on the Backpage account, Don Tequila. He determined that it was an alias and was associated with a Facebook page that makes negative comments about Dupuy and hates him. Hardcastle moved on to the next piece of information associated with the Backpage account, the email address, which was dontequila1900@hotmail.com. A subpoena was issued to MSN Hotmail on late February 2015, and they responded with the requested information on May 2015. The name listed on the email address was Don Tequila, and it was registered using a VPN IP address in Germany. However, a history of IP addresses associated with the email address was given as well. One of those IP addresses being 76.30.3.250, located in League City, Texas. 4 days later, a subpoena to Comcast was sent, and surprise, surprise, the records show that the subscriber for that IP address is Christopher Dupuy. A search warrant was executed on June 2015 for Dupuy's residence, and when his door was kicked in, he was found in the kitchen. When asked to put his hands up, a bullet fell from his hand. Hardcastle asked for the gun, and Dupuy complied and told him where it was. He found a 9mm pistol. When Dupuy's residence was searched, a bag was found in his bathroom, hidden between the toilet and the bathtub. You can see the contents of this bag in this picture. Dupuy was charged with 2 counts of online impersonation, and his bail was set to $600,000, but later reduced to $400,000. So that was the last case. I hope you enjoyed this video. Maybe you learned something. If you guys want, I've been thinking about making a video where I test, I have about 20 or so pretty deep exploits, pretty interesting ways of tracking specific browsers, fingerprinting the browser and marking it so that you know if they visited your site before and stuff, and far beyond just using cookies and stuff. And I might make a video of testing different versions of the Tor browser against that, along with a few different exploits. So if you want to see that video, let me know in the comments, and I'll probably end up making it. Please like and share and subscribe if you haven't already. Let me know if you'd like to see more videos like this. Thank you for watching.